And it's a pleasure to have you with us for the 66th edition of Ask the Governor. The Governor has made it every month since April of 2016, and this past month has been another eventful one, and he's here to talk about all that is going on, and much of it is storm-related. Again, your number, if you'd like to reach us, is 877-217-5757. It is program number 66. Our call a year ago, we did program 54 on the governor's 54th birthday. This is on the eve of birthday number 55 for John Bell Edwards, born September 16th, 1966. And happy birthday, Governor.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate that. And of course, I don't know how you remember all of that, but you're very good. Not just my birthday and my age, but just about anybody we talk about. So I guess it's a gift, and you have it.
Well, I remember the important dates, and that was an important one for Louisiana. And there are only two living governors remaining. And actually, John Bell Edwards is almost 5 years older, a little more than 5 years older than Bobby Jindal, who was born in 1971. But we lost some governors this year, and you have mourned them on this show. And at 55, there are many miles to travel for Governor Edwards, and he is in his second term, and he is term limited, but he has at least 2 more years remaining in the governor's mansion, and there is a lot of hard work to be done, and you never know. This is one of those years in which we got slammed again by hurricanes, and this time in some major urban centers, New Orleans and Baton Rouge affected dramatically. Your thoughts, first of all, about Hurricane Ida?
Well, first of all, very significant storm. The tied for the strongest storm to ever hit Louisiana, with the last island hurricane in 1856, as best they could gauge the wind speed, sustained wind speed there. But then after 1856, you go all the way to Hurricane Laura last year. And this storm came in on the 16th anniversary of Katrina, also at 150 mile per hour sustained winds, which is a very strong Category 4 storm. I would not be surprised because we've gotten some readings from different places. I would not be surprised if ultimately the storm isn't upgraded to a Category 5. But regardless, tremendous storm and caused utter devastation. And if you really look down at where it came ashore at Port Fourchon and just over to the east there at Grand Isle, just complete devastation. I spent an afternoon in Grand Isle, and I spent the better part of a day in Terrebonne-Lafourche parishes recently, and speaking to people who are in their 80s. And, Jim, they tell me they've never seen the devastation on this scale from a storm. And we know that we have an awful lot of people whose lives are still very much upside down because of their home, their businesses, basic services being interrupted, whether it's electricity, water, you name it. We got an awful lot of work to do. And I will tell you, I'm always inspired by the people of our state, and we see people whose homes are destroyed, and yet they're out taking care of their neighbors. And we saw that everywhere that we went. And so that really is inspirational. But we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm very thankful that we're catching a little break as it relates to it was a Hurricane Nicholas, because it's not going to deliver the rain that was projected as recently as yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a break, in Baton Rouge, where we are right now, got a break from Ida. As bad as it was, if it had been 20 miles closer, it would have been total devastation.
No, that's right. And, it just depended on whether you were in the line or just to the east of it. And, it jogged around a little bit, and the forecast changed from making landfall around Morgan City. It actually moved a little further east, but had it made landfall at Morgan City, if you just look due north from there, that's Baton Rouge. And so Baton Rouge did catch a break, although it was one of the parishes that was approved for individual assistance, and it's in the Blue Roof program. And, there are some people who received some damages, but just nothing on the scale of magnitude that you see down in the Bayou region, in St. Charles and in St. John, and even in the North Shore, Tangipahoa Parish, and St. Helena Parish, just really got hammered.
Where were you that night?
Oh, well, we left GOSEP, I guess, a little after dark on that night, and I went to the governor's mansion in Baton Rouge and stayed there for for the rest of the storm, and was in regular communication with the folks at GOSEP and the parish presidents around the state. Really was expecting a lot more people to be killed as a direct result of the impact of the storm, because the conversations had with parish presidents as the storm was coming to shore, they were getting reports of, let's say, apartment buildings, for example, that had at least partially collapsed, and they knew that they had people living in those buildings. And so we really thought that when we were able to get out and start the search and rescue, we were going to find an awful lot of people who would have been killed. And we're thankful that didn't happen. I mean, we're still at 29 individuals who've lost their lives as in a manner that's been confirmed by the coroner to be related to the hurricane. But only a couple of those were from the direct impact. The rest have been from heat, from carbon monoxide, and some other things. But in that sense, I guess we were blessed. We haven't had the loss of life that a storm could have that was this strong.
I think more people died in New Jersey than in Louisiana. That is just an incredible irony.
Well over 60 in northeast Louisiana because of Ida. Long after it ceased being a hurricane, it was a flash flood rain event. And, that just goes to show you have to always be prepared.
877-217-5757. We'll go to the phone lines in short order with Governor Edwards. Now, there were some problems with nursing homes, and a major operator has had his license revoked. There may be charges. There's an investigation. Your thoughts about protecting the people who are most in need?
Yeah, well, that's exactly why you evacuate them, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you lose power, you lose water, you don't have the ability to keep them safe and well during a hurricane event. And so evacuations are sometimes called for, and you know that this is a very fragile, frail population. And so just moving them, you have to be careful about whether you do, but when you do, you got to make sure you take care of them. That didn't happen in this situation with those 7 nursing homes.
And action has been taken. We do have some folks waiting in line to talk with the governor, and we ask that you be brief in your remarks to him. James in Longview, Texas, a familiar voice. Good afternoon, James.
Well, good afternoon, Jim, and good afternoon, Governor, and happy birthday. Anyhow, basically, I just want to ask you about the latest SpaceX capsule blasting off, and it carried a Louisiana native. As I understand, I'm just wanting to ask your opinion. Do you think that blast-off will do a lot for morale of Louisiana and also business in Louisiana?
Well, we can hope. And, Haley Arsenault comes from a prominent family in the Baton Rouge area. Her dad's a longtime member of the faculty at LSU, who's deceased now. But it'll be exciting. As a cancer survivor, she would be the youngest American ever to fly in space, and she's 29 years old. And she'll be representing St. Jude as well. And we're excited about having her in space. I think. With all of the civilian applications in space and in terms of tourism and so forth, that this really is a new era, and to have someone from Louisiana, and I think she because she's a cancer survivor, she's officially on the trip representing hope, and that's important for Louisiana right now, given everything that we're experiencing related to Hurricane Ida, to the pandemic, and so forth. So, yeah, we're excited about having Haley represent Louisiana in space.
Thank you, James in Longview. Always good to hear from James. Now, we do want to thank Jerry Mayer, who's in studio with us. He has been for each one of these shows since we began in April of 2016. So you'll be able to see the show in many places across the state on your cable channels. So we thank Hometown Productions. 877-217-5757. If you get a busy signal, be patient. Let's try Patricia in New Orleans. Patricia, you're on Ask the Governor.
Yes.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Governor. You did this show because you said you want to better understand how the challenges we're facing impact us, and that we can also learn from one another. Well, there's an issue that 150,000 of your constituents that's important to them. They're suffering. They're living in their cars. They couldn't evacuate because of the hurricane. They're losing everything they have, and they can't pay their bills. So my question to you is, when are you going to reinstate the pandemic unemployment benefits that you suspended after July 31st?
Well, Patricia, thank you very much for the call. And as I think you would know, September 6th was the last day that those unemployment benefits were payable. And there was legislation that was passed in the most recent session of the legislature where we got a permanent weekly benefit increase, the first one, I think, in more than a decade. But it also called for ending the enhanced federal benefits early. I signed the bill into law, so that is passed now, and the September 6th has passed. But we do encourage anybody who's out there who has a problem with employment related to the storm to apply, because there is disaster unemployment insurance, and you can do that at laworks.net, or you can call 866-783-5567 in order to apply for those unemployment benefits.
877-217-5757. I see a line open for the first time in a while. Deborah in Gretna. Deborah, you're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Deborah.
Thank you, Governor. My question is regarding debris pickup along the Oakwood Canal. I have a property with an enormous oak tree that's down, and after Katrina, people put debris on the backside of their property, which has access to the parish can get in and out through there. I cannot get through to anyone to find out if I can put my debris back there for pickup rather than try and get it through a narrow space in the front of my property.
Deborah, first of all, what I want to make sure that you do is give your contact information to Nick. Your property is on a parish road, or is it on a state road? Because and whether it's parish, city, or state, there will be a debris contractor who will come by and pick up the debris. But where you have to put it, we'll get that information for you and call you with that. And do remember, you and everyone else, that we're supposed to be separating debris so that vegetative debris goes in one place, construction and demolition debris goes somewhere else. Normal household garbage doesn't go in there, and certainly not appliances as well. They're all supposed to be separated as best you can do that. But there are debris contractors out there right now who are picking up, and that slowed down a little bit because of Nicholas. But it's my understanding that they're picked back up today, and you know, only a very small percentage of the overall debris has been picked up thus far, and this is going to be a very expensive storm with respect to debris removal. We're thankful that President Biden gave us the first 30 days at 100%. We're going to ask for an extension of that. But if you'll give me your address, I'll find out where you need to put it, and we'll call you back.
And I think we lost Deborah, at least for now. So if you call back, we will get your address and do as best we can to get the information to the right people. Jeff in Lafayette. Jeff, you're on Ask the Governor. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, Governor. Thank you for joining us once again. We're just coming out of Nicholas here, and we're very thankful. National Weather Service had indicated we might see 25, possibly even 30 inches of rain from this system. Thank God we did not. So here in town, we got somewhere between 4 and 6 inches of rain. That's not that much. It did not come all at once, but once again, the Vermilion River is in flood stage, and I'm just wondering, here we are 5+ years after that terrible event, August 2016, where our home flooded, and many of our neighbors and friends, family, their homes flooded as well. So on the state level, can you give us an update on what's happening with getting the Vermilion dredged, working with federal, state, and local partners, sir?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jeff, thank you. And I, too, am glad that Nicholas didn't bring what was forecasted, because yesterday we were able to run an inundation map based on modeling with the projected rainfall, and the current elevation of the rivers, and there was some residential communities in the Lafayette area out towards the airport that we thought might see flooding yet again, and we're thankful that's not going to happen. As for specifically dredging the Vermilion, I can't answer that question for you this morning. I will get that answer and let you know. I do know that in September of last year, we were given access to hazard mitigation grant program dollars that we are plugging in to different watersheds, and I know that the watershed of the Vermilion, that those parishes, I think 8 or 9 parishes, came together and very quickly outlined priority projects that would benefit the entire watershed. And I know that we're moving forward on those, but I cannot recall off the top of my head where the dredging fits in with that, and so we'll have to get back with you on that one.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's try Chris and Zachary. Chris, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Governor and Jim. And, Governor, I just want to say thanks for the outstanding leadership I think you're rendering our state. You've been through crisis after crisis, and in my opinion, you've not stumbled a time. So thank you for that. And my question is, have you considered running for president? I think you'd be a good one.
Chris, thank you very much. First of all, your kind remarks. And no, I have not. And quite frankly, it's been a tremendous privilege for me to be governor of our state, and it's a job that I look forward to every single day. But I love my wife. I want to keep her, and I'm pretty sure that I won't be running for president going forward. She's not on board with that.
Well, even with your birthday tomorrow, you'll still be 23 years younger than the current inhabitant. You got a lot of time to decide whether you want to do it. But I would think the governor, if he were to run, would be a serious candidate. But you've got work to do. But you are landlocked. You're term limited. And you've said before a lot of conjecture about you possibly running for the Senate next year. Is that a no-go?
Yeah, I'm not intending to run for any additional offices. I'm looking forward to returning to the private sector, returning to our home in Roseland, and it has been a tremendous privilege, and it's been a very challenging time thus far. I was hoping the second term was going to be easier. That doesn't appear to be in the cards, but I intend to go back to the private sector, and Donna and I have an awful lot that we want to accomplish, and government service is one way to serve, but there are other ways that we can contribute as well.
I remember Mark Shields, the political pundit, once said the only way politicians leave office is either by the pine box or the ballot box. You say you're walking away voluntarily?
I think so, yes, sir.
Okay. Patrick in Baton Rouge. Patrick, you're on Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Governor, you took an oath to the U.S. Constitution when you were sworn in the office, and as you know, the Fifth Amendment guarantees our right to due process, and Article 1, Section 10 says no state shall impair the obligation of a contract, and the U.S. Supreme Court recently threw out the Trump-Biden CDC eviction moratorium, and even though Hurricane Ida did not impact the entire state of Louisiana and most courts were reopened on Tuesday after Labor Day, you took the advice of a law professor from Loyola Law College. I don't know how you can call yourself a law professor.
All right. Well, what's your question, Patrick?
Okay. So why is your moratorium on civil court system, which imposes why is your moratorium constitutional? Explain how that's possible.
All right. Thank you, sir.
First of all, Patrick, thank you for the call. I don't have a moratorium in against eviction proceedings. I think what you may be referencing is all legal deadlines have been suspended for a while because of Hurricane Ida, and that's because her courts were closed in many places across Louisiana, and litigants and attorneys who have business in courts all across Louisiana weren't going to be able to make it in, and conferring with the judiciary and others. But I'm not sure any law professors from Loyola, at least not me, I'm not sure where that came from. We decided that, as we've done in previous disasters of this magnitude, that we would suspend legal deadlines as part of a proclamation until the courts could reopen. So that may be what you refer to, and I'm absolutely 100% confident not only was it constitutional, but it was the appropriate thing to do.
All right. And again, your number is 877-217-5757. We're a minute away from the bottom of the hour break, but we talked about Haley Arsenault. There's another young woman from Harvey, I believe, Zola Avant-Garde. What a great name. She won the National Spelling Bee, also is a spectacular athlete, and you had a chance to meet her recently.
Yeah, just a delightful person, and you know that her parents have done a wonderful job raising her, and she studies extremely hard, not just for the spelling bees, but for her schoolwork and her academics, but an exceptional athlete. And I've seen the dribbling drills that she's done, and she actually came to the governor's mansion, and together we shot a commercial promoting the COVID vaccinations, and then she went out on the basketball court and demonstrated, some of her skills. And she's just an exceptional human being. Very proud of her.
There are a few lines open, and we'll return to the phones in just a moment. Governor John Bel Edwards at your service for another half hour, and much happening in the world. We've spent much of the first part of the program talking about Hurricane Ida, but we've hardly mentioned the pandemic, and there is still a continuing challenge in that regard. The President of the United States issued what amounted to a national mandate on vaccines last week and has gotten a lot of grief from it, particularly from other Southern governors. Your thoughts about what the president did, Governor Edwards?
Well, look, the vaccines are safe, they're effective, they're free, they're convenient, and they are the way out of the pandemic. My messaging has not changed and will not change. Individuals need to take advantage of this opportunity that we've been given to protect themselves, their families, their community, and to keep the pandemic in check. It is the most important thing that we can do to get through this as soon as possible and in the best possible shape. And so, I encourage people to get vaccinated. Today we have 89% of the cases are among unvaccinated people. The hospitalizations, it's the same percentage. 85% of the deaths from COVID-19 are unvaccinated individuals. And so I just think it's important. And these, at least the Pfizer is now completely approved by the FDA, full licensure. A number of people indicated they were going to wait until that happened before they would get vaccinated. Well, that has happened, and that shot's available for individuals who are able to go and get these vaccines. So I encourage people to do it. I understand that there are some people who believe that they have a right to decide, and certainly they do, whether to get the vaccine. But those choices have consequences, not just for themselves, but for society as a whole. And we also have a right not to be unreasonably exposed to dangers from others. And so those two things can be in conflict, and you have to come down one way or the other. I'm encouraging people to do it because it really is the right thing to do. Sometimes we focus so much on what we have a right to do or a right not to do that we forget to focus on what is the right thing to do. And I'm encouraging people to get vaccinated.
We had a governor of California who was recalled almost. There was a vote last night, and he won overwhelmingly. But the fact that it took a vote for Gavin Newsom to keep his job, and that was almost exclusively because he stood for strong measures when the pandemic broke out. It is curious.
Yeah, it is. And I think there was a personal lapse that was documented and photographed where he went to a restaurant and didn't appear to be observing some of the things he was encouraging other Californians to do. And that had an impact there. But, I'm glad our system is not like theirs. They spent $300 million on a recall election to have something close to 2/3 of the people who voted say that they didn't want to make a change. And so however it happened, you have to second guess just how that recall situation gets set up in California.
Well, elections actually can spur the economy. And I was in Los Angeles for the LSU-UCLA game, and I can tell you a lot of television and radio stations cleaned up on that recall election. Every spot break, it was one side and the other. It was an amazing show of force.
Yeah, I can imagine. Of course, I wasn't able to make it out to Los Angeles because of Hurricane Ida. and of course, that wasn't the best day for LSU either. But I have actually been in California in advance of an election, and if you remember, they put a lot of propositions on the ballot too. I don't think I saw any commercial on TV during the trip that I made out there that wasn't about the election. Some candidate, some proposition, some group. I mean, and so you're right. I think it does stimulate the economy.
Now, the governor is a huge football fan, and he is a graduate of LSU law school after his West Point degree. And right now, the team is suffering. And what are we? This is September 15th. We're a year and 8 months from Nirvana in the Superdome. What do you think about the challenges that the team and the coach are facing right now?
Well, look, it's a challenging time, as you just mentioned, but at the end of the day, we made a road trip to California to play a very good team after a week when we were dislocated, whatever the right word there is, where we actually had to move the team to Texas. And so I don't fret over that. Last week, we were a little bit flat, but ended up with a convincing win. I believe we will win this Saturday, and so it's another opportunity to get better, and that's what you look for teams to do. And I have confidence in Coach Orgeron and his coaches that he'll be able to make that happen, because it's apparent to me there's an awful lot of talent on the field, and they're going to continue to get better and be competitive. And I'm excited about it. I don't think we're going to see anything that looks like last year. When this season is all said and done, and of course that year was so topsy turvy with all of the COVID situation and so forth. But I'm excited. I'm a big Tiger fan, as you know, and I look forward to us winning each and every week.
Is that a vote of confidence?
Well, it is for me, for whatever that's worth. Yeah,
you are the governor.
I am, but I take a personal interest in this. It's something that's important to me. But you just mentioned it. We're a little more than a year and a half removed from one of the best seasons in college football history, if not the very best. And so, I have all the confidence in the world that we have a good coach and a good coaching staff, and that they're going to be able to put the team in a position to compete every week, no matter who we're playing.
And we do have some calls to get to, but I do continue to get people asking me to ask you inflammatory stuff, and this one's not inflammatory, but it involves another LSU matter. Coach Dale Brown, the LSU board, in its wisdom, voted 12-3 Friday to name the court in his honor. I think you were 5 years old when he became basketball coach at LSU. You must have encountered him a time or two.
I did. My freshman year at LSU Law School, I actually lived in the apartments on Nicholson. And I would go over. I was kind of surprised to find out that as a student, I could go in the games for free. So my first year in law school, I went to a lot of LSU.
What year was that?
Ooh, this would have been in 96, the fall of 96 and early in 97. And I was able to go to some basketball games. And that was towards the end of his.
It was last year.
Yeah, towards the end of his career there at LSU. But I enjoyed that. And of course, he's been a great ambassador for basketball and for LSU for a long time, and I understand that now he'll have his name on the court there in the PMAC.
Nathan in Houma. Nathan, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, how you doing? I appreciate you taking my call. Recently, with Hurricane Ida, my parents were displaced from Houma. They came up to Houston to stay with me for a while. I know there's some resources with FEMA. A lot of times it's limited because they were renters. My question is does the state have the equivalent of FEMA or any sort of resources or funding for those that were displaced that are renters?
Well, the answer is yes. And by the way, FEMA has assistance available, and they have rental assistance that's available. And if the place that they were renting is no longer available because it was damaged, and there's other sheltering opportunities available, including the Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program, where you can get rooms in hotel rooms in 10 states, one of those being Texas, by the way. And so I would encourage your parents to register with FEMA, and they do that at 800-621-3362, or they go to disasterassistance.gov. And they should specifically look into the transitional shelter assistance. That could be very helpful for them. And thank you very much for taking in your parents. And I will. The home area just got pounded. I don't know if you remember, Nathan, but the hurricane came in, made landfall at Port Fourchon, got north to about Houma, and just started knuckleballing around for a while, and just really hammered that area. And I'm glad that they were able to get out and that they're safe. But they should register with FEMA. We do have a program there.
Nick in Crowley. Nick, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Nick.
Hey, good afternoon, Jim, and thank you, Governor, for your tremendous leadership and work in both terms so far. But lighter question here. I grew up one of six, and my mom used to let me pick supper for my birthday and pick the cake. So I want to know, what are you going to eat for supper for your birthday, and what kind of cake are you going to have for your birthday? Happy birthday.
All right, Nick in Crowley.
Well, Nick, I was listening a while ago when we went to a commercial break, and they were talking about pre-diabetes. I'm pre-diabetic, so I don't get the supper that I would want, and I don't get the supper I would have had last year, which would have been liver and onions served with grits and biscuits. But I am going to have tuna steak tomorrow night, rare. But I thank you very much for the call. Appreciate that.
Well, and the governor looks healthy, but obviously we all have conditions we have to deal with, and pre-diabetic, so I suspect no sweets.
Well, that's exactly right. And I miss my sweets and my potatoes.
And much happening in our world. We've covered the pandemic and Hurricane Ida, and if you have anything else or maybe something on those topics, that's fine too. And as the hour moves along, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the state police investigation that continues. Your thoughts about whether that's going to be resolved efficiently and quickly?
Well, I don't know how quick. I mean, obviously we have some matters that are being investigated by District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Department of Justice. Those investigations have been pending for some time, and certainly the U.S. Department of Justice never tells you what timeline they're on. What I will tell you is I have complete confidence in Colonel Lamar Davis. There have been leadership changes at the headquarters level, but also in troops as it was warranted. Policy changes. I think you've seen much more in the way of transparency, but also some real repercussions for troopers who have been demonstrated to not exemplified what it is to be a state trooper, especially if they cross the line and do things that are illegal. So I can't tell you what the timeline is, but I can tell you I'm very optimistic that under the leadership of Colonel Davis, we're going to be able to navigate through this with improvements to the agency and renewed confidence from the people of Louisiana.
And you are from a law enforcement family, and that's an understatement. I know you have great reverence for men and women who devote their lives to sometimes a selfless and dangerous occupation. And I'm sure it grieves you when there are some bad apples who shed a bad light on others who are heroically doing their jobs.
Yeah, and I think we should all agree that the overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers, regardless of the agency, whether it's state police or sheriff's deputies or city police officers, whatever, they're really good people doing a good job, and it's a very difficult and dangerous job. But there are some people who just should not have the badge, and they shouldn't have that authority. And you know, when you discover that, they have to be separated as soon as possible. That's the only way for the public to have confidence that in the agency and in law enforcement generally, and that's incredibly important. And so it does pain me anytime we see misbehavior, brutality that's unwarranted and that sort of thing. We really want people to protect and serve. We want them to be professional about it. And even though the vast majority are, they all get stained to some degree by those who are not.
And this one has another element in that there apparently, at least one incident, there was a cover-up. And often it's said the cover-up is worse than the crime. But the lack of transparency appears to be something that is troublesome. And is that something you can address from your office?
Well, we can, and to some extent, at least, in terms of the policy, when things are going to be made available to the public, whether investigations into state police officers will commence even when there's a criminal investigation that's ongoing, and those policy changes have been made. But part of the things that are being called a cover-up really not. For example, the district attorney and the U.S. Department of Justice asked that the videos in the Ronald Green matter not be shown to the public, that it would compromise the investigation that they're doing and potentially adversely impact a decision whether to prosecute. And so if you have that from the DA and from the U.S. DOJ, then you don't go out and show the video to the public. But by not showing the video to the public, you get accused that you're trying to cover it up. And people forget that once they asked not to show it to the public, we then, within a week or 10 days, made it available to the family, to the family's lawyers, and to members of the Black Caucus, those videos. And so sometimes, the media, I think, is incomplete in the way it portrays things and tends towards the sensational as opposed to keeping everything in context. And that is not to say that everything that has happened has been exactly right, because it hasn't been. You can go back and I think there was excess brutality shown to Mr. Green. There was just no reason for that. But the cover-up part of it, much of that is overblown or just false.
Well, I think, obviously there has been transparency of late, and the initial action, his cause of death certainly was questionable as far as what it was listed. And that has been addressed, but it was a falsehood for a while.
Well, and there, I don't want to quibble with you. The issue would be, did he die from injuries sustained in the accident? And obviously he didn't die in the accident itself, because he was still alive when the troopers were engaging with him. But what was the cause of death? If I don't know that was falsely portrayed. But obviously there was interaction on the scene with Mr. Green before he died that, I'm not going to say they were unprofessional, because that's so mild that it was really criminal. But as to whether those criminal actions were the cause of death, that's what's being investigated right now. And I'm not going to get in front of that.
And the major perpetrator is now, we know he's deceased.
He's deceased.
Yes, he's deceased. John in New Orleans. John, good afternoon. You're on with Governor Edwards. Hi, John.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd just like to ask, Governor, if there's any lessons learned from Hurricane Ida that could help us better prepare for future storms.
Oh, wow. Thank you, John. Yeah, absolutely. There always are. For one, we have to reevaluate the whole deal about what kind of evacuations you call and whether you start contraflow, because you typically would gauge that depending on the forecasted strength of the storm and its path. But more and more, we're seeing storms that blow up in the Caribbean, and you don't have much time, and they undergo rapid intensification, and you don't have as much time to do, for example, a contraflow that really takes a long time to do it correctly, because what you don't want to do is actually trap the people on the coast behind all the people ahead of them. And if you don't have enough time to stage the contraflow, that's what's going to happen. But we also now have a hurricane risk reduction system that protects the many people in the metropolitan area of New Orleans and Jefferson Parish and other parishes as well, to a degree that wasn't available to us before. And so we have to look at all of that, but really the whole timeline, because typically you would, in the past, you would watch a storm system as it left the west coast of Africa, started across the Atlantic, and you had lots of lead time. That's not happening. And I think the Gulf waters are so warm that rapid intensification is happening to a degree that we just haven't seen before. And so we're going to have to reevaluate all of our timelines, all of our decisional triggers about what we do. And this is something that we've had a lot of communications with the federal government as well and our local partners, because all of that plays a role. But there are always lessons learned. We do after action reviews. We capture lessons learned, and then we build those into our plans for the future. But that's certainly one that we're going to have to take a strong look at.
Bill in Baton Rouge, you're on the air with Governor Edwards. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Governor. Thank you, first of all. As a autoimmune compromised person and my 99-year-old grandmother, we thank you for pushing vaccines for everybody. I thank you. My question is about oil spills after Ida. I've been seeing reports upwards of maybe 2,500 chemical and oil leaks. And what do we know? What do we have as far as damage reports and what we're doing on it? And I'll go offline and say, go Tigers and happy birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And with the autoimmune issue that you just spoke about, you are eligible for a third shot, not a booster shot, a third shot. You're eligible now if you want to take advantage of that. So there were hundreds of oil spills that were reported initially. Very few of them actually required any action, resulted in any real detectable. And what happens is you get multiple reports of the same oil spill, and so the number that you hear initially is not an accurate number in terms of the total number of discrete individual spills out there. There was one incident that I'm aware of involving a pipeline that became dislodged, and it was an abandoned pipeline, but it still had some product in it. I don't know that we know yet who the responsible party would have been, but that pipeline has been capped with the opportunity to go back and it capped it in a way that we can go back and vacuum it out and get any remaining product out of it. But all of that oil, and it went out towards the sea, and I don't believe that there's any additional work that has to be done there. But the Louisiana Oil Spill Coordinator's Office, headed by Sam Jones, runs that and does that in conjunction with the U.S. Coast Guard as to whether something's in state or federal waters. And the Coast Guard reports every day, and they're making tremendous progress. But they've whittled this down to, I think, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but to a few dozen things that actually merit further attention, and none of which have a spill on par with things that we've seen in the past with big hurricanes like Katrina, for example.
We're just about out of time, so we won't be able to get to all of you, but we'll be back next month. The governor will be here for number 67. It's his birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Governor.
Thank you very much, Jim.
You're going to get your third shot?
I will. I'm looking for when the FDA authorizes it. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I did have Pfizer, and it looks like that will happen first, and it may happen at the 8th month mark, which would be November the 2nd for me.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Thanks for listening. See you in October.